to simply just say, well, give everyone Ozempic, who's given cheap food and junk food, is going to just make things worse. We'll cripple the economy with the drug bills, as well as keeping on with the problems of junk food, which are not only obesity, but they're mental health issues as well. We're having a mental health crisis, I don't know if everyone's noticed, as well as an obesity crisis, and they're related. And it's all due to that same food that's basically poisoning us.
We know Britain is a sick nation with the record numbers signed off from work. We also know it's a country where nearly 30% of people are obese. The two issues are being linked this morning as a major study finds that obese people are twice as likely to take time off work, with Britain among the worst of the 28 countries examined. When it comes to tackling obesity, the Health Minister Maria Caulfield told us becoming a nanny state is not the solution, but what are the alternatives and what actually works? Let's speak to Tim Spector, who's the founder of the Zoe Nutrition app and professor of genetic epidemiology. He joins us now. Morning to you, Tim.
Good morning.
The minister doesn't want to be have a nanny state. She also kept talking about exercise, and so did Labour. Actually, this idea of exercise. Is exercise the most important thing, or is it the quality and nature of food that we should think about first of all?
Well, I think our food choices are the most important things we can do for our health. And so being helped in those food choices is not the nanny state. The nanny state got us smoking less. The nanny state stops serving alcohol to children and, reduces drug use in kids. So I think the word nanny state is used as a batting away any useful preventive medicine measures and should be banned, is my view. I think the other myth that's out there is that just by giving kids extra playgrounds, you can get rid of childhood obesity. And this has been around for about 20 years and propagated by the food companies who've actually sponsored research in this and actually blinded people's attention. You can't run off a bad diet. And that's where we are at the moment. Exercise is good for you, but it doesn't help you lose weight, doesn't help children lose weight. Changing the quality of their food does, and moving us away from being the country that has the most ultra-processed food to one that has similar levels to healthy countries in Europe should be our objective, because it's that's causing the obesity crisis, it's that's causing the mental health crisis. And the poor old public are surrounded by stuff with mixed messaging that makes it really hard for them to make those right food choices. And I think that's why we're in this mess. And the government is, with the lobbying of food companies, actually stopping any progress in this field and continuing this confusion for consumers who think they're eating reasonably healthily and actually are getting addicted to junk foods, which are making them fatter.
And I was talking about an obesity revolution. Actually, we need to do something serious now. If we put you in the chair, Tim Spector, and you had two or three policies that would directly impact, particularly maybe the companies producing ultra-processed food, but maybe more broadly, go wherever you like, two or three policies, revolutionary policies that would actually make a big difference here.
Well, I'd start with the simple ones. The simple one is to make sure that every government institution wasn't allowed to serve more than 10% of ultra-processed food. That's fake food made in factories from fake ingredients that aren't whole foods. So schools, hospitals, universities, prisons, that would make a huge difference immediately if that was brought in. It wouldn't cost anything at all, really. It would just change our way of providing those meals. Second would be to change labeling on foods, outlaw these false halo health symbols on foods that we know are unhealthy, such as low in calorie, low in fat, high in vitamins, high in protein, for ultimately unhealthy foods, equivalent to cigarettes. And it's like, we shouldn't allow, it was like allowing menthol cigarettes to say they're healthy because they've got a bit of mint in them.
Yeah.
It's exactly that equivalent. And I think we need to be moving towards taxing these like alcohol, like cigarettes, but in a way that does allow people to switch over to real foods and incentivizing those real foods and providing levels in it. But so I think it's institutional, saying that this isn't good, and this government still hasn't recognized that ultra processed foods are unhealthy, whereas many countries around the world now have. It's getting food labels so people know what they're eating, and it should come with a health warning. And thirdly, let's change those financial incentives to start very slowly taxing the bad stuff and making the good stuff cheaper, so people can do it, as well as we've talked about, educating kids in schools about how to cook and what real food is, and stop this fixation that just by playgrounds we can get out of this mess. We've got to change our food system, not our exercise system.
Tim, stay there. We'll come back to you in a moment. But that's the interventionist case, which I think is very articulately put. Let's speak to Matthew Lesh, who's the Director of Public Policy and Communications at the free market think tank, the IEA, which historically is against widespread intervention, I think. Good morning to you, Matthew.
Good morning.
What do you... Those policy ideas of Tim Spector, the idea that we have a serious problem, something needs to change, and that change has to come from government. What do you make of that as a concept?
Look, I have no doubt that obesity is a serious problem. I'm not sure that obesity has significantly increased in recent years. This has been an ongoing issue, and I think Tim Spector has done some fantastic work in terms of highlighting what is a healthy diet. I think we should be skeptical, though, of some of these more interventionist policies that don't necessarily have a particularly strong evidence base. I mean, if you look at something like the sugar tax, yes, it might have reduced the amount of sugary soft drinks people have, but it didn't necessarily reduce obesity because people went and sought calories in other places. There's also pretty weak evidence, including from the government's own impact assessments of things like advertising bans. There's no significant evidence that they reduce calorie intakes by more than, I think, something like 5 calories a week, or in that vicinity on average. I think there is obviously a role in advising people and encouraging people to eat in a more healthy way. We just have to be careful of, I think, applying this kind of tobacco-like framework to food. It's quite clear that food is not the same as tobacco, that we need food. I think you'd have to also be a pretty courageous government to want to start introducing more taxes, particularly on something as essential as the weekly shop. It doesn't seem like a particularly viable approach.
I guess the point, though, is that things have changed so much in the last 30 years that the type of food that's available, the rise of ultra-processed food, the rise of food that contains ingredients that's designed to make us addicted and designed to be bad for us, that didn't exist 40 years ago, and it's increased year by year ever since. And the question is, if you don't have some sort of systemic response to that and just say it's all down to people's choice, they're being given choices that previous generations of humanity have never been given. So there need to be new rules around that, is the argument.
Well, it would seem to me the fundamental issue here is the fact that we live in a wealthy society where, unlike historically, we didn't have access to the amount of food people basically couldn't afford or couldn't hunt the food that we needed and we might have wanted to eat. Whether the access to relatively condensed calorific food, ultra processed food as it's called, it of course encourages people to eat more. I think you have to be quite skeptical about the capacity of using policy to reduce this. I mean, I also think that we're on the cusp of quite a medical revolution with something like Ozempic, where for people who are obese, who don't have the self-restraint, there is an option available increasingly on the NHS, and that's the most effective proven weight loss tool that we possibly have, and I think we should be leaning into for people who do need to lose weight. And I don't think making food slightly more expensive is going to change someone's disposition if they don't have the self-control, and Ozempic is what gives people that self-control.
Tim, that's an interesting point, though. There's a brave new world, which is either a utopia or a dystopia, depending on how you look at it, where everyone gets fat, but then everyone gets on Ozempic and gets thin again, and that's the answer. The answer is we can't change people's behavior. We can't change what they eat, what they choose to eat. We can't change the nature of food. We can just fix the problem after the event by making people thin.
I think, I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry really at that comment that we, let them eat as much cake as they want and then give them Ozempic because it's all their own fault because they don't have self-control. I think the reason we're in this mess, we've got to look at it. 60% of the food we have in this country for our children and adults is ultra processed, that's designed to make you overeat. So it's designed to make you become obese. And it's very tasty. It's very carefully done. Other countries like France have levels of 10%. So we are many times worse than other countries because we don't have that food culture, that education about what real food is. So to simply just say, well, give everyone Ozempic, who's given cheap food and junk food, is going to just make things worse. We'll cripple the economy with the drug bills, as well as keeping on with the problems of junk food, which are not only obesity, but they're mental health issues as well. We're having a mental health crisis. I don't know if everyone's noticed, as well as an obesity crisis, and they're related. And it's all due to that same food that's basically poisoning us. So I think we need to be much more serious about this. And I do think we need to treat food companies like cigarette companies who are trying to get us addicted, and have succeeded in this country, not in others, into eating more and more of this food that just makes us fatter, makes us more and more hungry. And people just need to be warned. I'm not against those foods. They shouldn't be banned, but they should come with a very clear health warning that what you're eating is going to make your mental health and your waistline worse.